Hi and welcome. Today I have a review video on these markers from ZSCM. They sent them to me for free to try them out, and guess what? There are 160 markers in this case. It's an unbelievable big number of pens. I will just put them out. They come in these handy holders, and you can just pull those out completely like this, and then you have two sides with different markers. They come in a little bit of a strange order, but what I felt was they look harmonious to me and how they come, but I will sort them out. That's our neighbor's rooster. It's sometimes a little bit loud. And here's the other side, which also contains the same amount, 80 markers. I really like the color combos here. What I love about the big set is that you get a lot of light colors, and I need a lot of light colors. I use these markers in my sketchbook. It's a bit of a mess. Like for this one, I used it to color in the beers, and then I used a little bit of pencil on top. Here I used the markers to create a background, and it's the same with this one. I use them a lot to create a first layer, and then I add details with colored pencils. I will sort some of them out which I prefer and which I like color-wise, and then I will swatch them for you and make a little sketch. Here I'm back, and I swatched all of these 160 colors because there is no other option if you want to know which color the markers have. What I have to say is that the lid of the pens almost never match with their color. This is one of the more exact ones, but a lot of are a little bit surprising. So you need swatches with the number so you know what you are getting. On the left side, I swatched all colors in their color family. Here are the blues, and on the right side I picked those that I really like and I would pick for my sketchbook, and I will take out with me when I go drawing outside, or that I will have close to me when I draw at home. And the rest of them I will leave in their original packaging, and whenever I run out of a marker of these, I can replace it with one that is similar, and here I already marked the ones that look similar to me. On the next page I swatched all the greens. They have, you can see there are a lot of greens compared to the blues, but I also have the turquoises in here, and I liked a bunch of them. Then I picked the yellows and oranges, and whenever I had one that is not that color, I just wrote it down and I would swatch it on the page for this color family. Because the lids are so different from the color that is inside, it is hard to decide which color it exactly is. What I really love is that there are really light colors. There are a lot of pinks, and there are not so many reds. I felt I'm missing kind of a real red that is between this one and this one. They are all kind of a little bit pinkish, the darker reds. Also there are a lot of that are pretty similar to each other. What's great, because if you are sketching and you run out of one marker, you can replace it by one of the others. One marker came almost empty, but that was just one, and it was not as juicy as the other ones. Here I have my violets and the grays. As there are so less grays, only these few, I picked all of them to put them in my box that I used to use. There are just a few violets, and there are almost some pinkish colors here. And finally, the neutral brown tones. This could have been in the pink or red section, but it was hard to see how the color exactly looks when I looked at the lid. I really love these. These are super nice colors, and I picked a lot of them out that I would use. Okay, I now have these markers all in my box, and it's a pretty big selection. There are 79 I picked from 160, so almost the half of them. And I will now use the markers and sketch some birdies with you, and I will also use them to color in a stamped image on watercolor paper to see how they are working with water. As a reference for my birdies, I used these illustrations in a beautiful bird book. I start my bird sketch with a Pentel brush pen. It's filled with waterproof ink, and that means that I can easily go on top with the markers without smearing my outline. I will speed up this process a little bit so you don't get bored, and I will go back to normal speed when I color in the birdies. I let the ink dry for, I would say, 1 or 2 hours before I came back with the markers. I was a bit afraid if I rub over the ink with the markers that they will smear the ink if it's not 100% dry. I'm starting out with a yellow marker, and I'm working quickly. I don't redraw the birds in a realistic way. I just use the reference images as kind of a guide. And I love to work quickly and colorful in mixed media. That's what I find really fun to do, and it's kind of something I did when I was a child, and I still enjoy this way of working. The marker catched a little bit of that black pigment or gray pigment. I just clean it by brushing it onto my page, and then everything is fine. I switched to a more darker greenish yellow for the shadows. For the even darker shadows, I pick a greenish color, which is kind of a green with a gray touch, and you can see that the lid is different to the marker. Well, I don't really mind that because it's almost with every marker the case that you can't really say how the color is looking when you have a look at the lid, and that's the reason why I make swatches. Usually in my sketchbook, or not usually, but very often, I start with a layer of markers, and then I add details on top with colored pencils, and often also the neo colors. Here I was searching for a lighter gray to just blend it in a little bit. I will let this page dry before I come back to add more details, and in that time I want to try out the markers for coloring in a stamped image. The paper I'm having here is kind of a Bristol paper, very smooth without any texture, and the other one is watercolor paper. What I really like is that you can layer the markers and create a kind of a light and shadow effect with only one marker. I'm using a darker red to add in some more deeper shadows, and I will blend these with the lighter pink
and I feel that works really well. I really love that kind of sketchy method to color in stamped images. I really like how this turned out, and I will definitely use this technique in the future. And now I want to see how they blend with water on watercolor paper. And that looks great to me. I've used the Canson XL watercolor paper, which is perfect if you want to have a smooth blending effect when you are working with watercolor markers. Another way you can use these markers is by scribbling the marker on a blending palette, or as I do it here on my glass plate, and then pick it up with your water brush. I really like this way of working too. I have nothing to say against these markers. They look similar to me like any other watercolor marker. I have the Tombows Lane here, which I would say are a little bit more intense color-wise, which is not always that something I want to have. What I don't know is how long they will last. They are, of course, smaller than the Tombows, but I think to use them in your sketchbook or maybe for your bullet journal, they are gorgeous. Here I try a blending technique. You let one color flow down into the tip of the other to create a gradient effect. And I did this here. I put the light green onto the darker one. If you make it too long, then it takes a while until you get that original ink out of your marker, but you can see how perfect that worked. I am now back in my sketchbook to finish up the birdies, and what I'm doing here is I'm using colored pencils to add the details. I really love the look of colored pencils on top of these kind of markers, and it's a really fun and playful process. Layering up different materials also gives you some really interesting texture and depth on your drawings. For the background, I decided to pick a reddish kind of marker, which is a bit of a contrast against the yellow-greenish color, to make the birdies pop a little bit more. I really love to make a background in that way. And when I'm done with this layer, I will add a layer of neo color on top, because that gives you a really interesting texture. I hope you enjoyed this video and you now have kind of an idea what you can expect from these markers. I wish you a wonderful rest of the week and hopefully we will see us next time. Bye!